and with almost Dr. Derrick Smith. He's getting there. I mean, he basically has all the information, all the content, all the experience down pat. They should just award him the darn degree today. But nonetheless, he is part of our SNU family, and he's an expert in so many different areas. And Derek, just before we hit record, your background in education psychology, right? All right. So what you've learned in that, the expertise you've garnered in that and whatnot, how do you convey that to faculty? In other words, those things that faculty, who more often, no fault of their own, they teach by rote. It
Mhm.
works before, it'll work again. But what do they really need to know about the online learner based upon what you know?
I think first and foremost is taking yourself out of your academic training and looking at it eyes from a first time learner who's seen all of the commercials of online learning and that has all these vast experiences and kind of get a picture of where they're thinking of the wanting to know the hows, the whys, and how each step works. Just like in K-12, parents and families and communities, they all want to know the how. The online learner wants to know the how, the why, the process, and all of these things of how this works. And when I was an undergrad, my school and society professor, the very first day, he said, before you go out and do your student teaching, close your eyes and ask yourself one question. If you had a job you absolutely hated,
Right.
but that's the only thing you could do to make a living, but no one explained the how to you, and you kept fighting and fighting and wanting to know the how, ask yourself how that feels. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is horrible if no one tells you the how.
Right.
And he says, open your eyes. Imagine every day when your students come in your classroom and they don't get the how. It is your job to give them the how. And for 15 years, I have never forgotten that. It is about the how.
So in the online environment, which is text only, I mean, what's a say a tangible representation of what how looks like?
Is first is when you look at the reading, is when you look at high school, you're reading basically to pass a class and that's it.
Right.
In online learning, whether that be in your bachelor's program or your master's program, you are now reading to become a professional in your new field. In that you are just not reading to recall, is that you're reading with a specific intent of learning these skills to become a professional. In that now, instead of in Bloom's taxonomy, you're not at recall, you're analyzing, you're synthesizing, is you're reading that for a higher purpose and setting that foundation in whatever intro course or is just in communicating to the student that you are now reading at or have to read at a higher level
Hmm.
and communicating that from day one and being consistent that whether that be with the textbook, the scholarly articles, telling them the how and what we're looking for you to read. Now it's forget the recall. We want you to be critical thinkers. We
Right.
want you to ask probing questions. All of those things which lead to when we talk about the writing in just a few minutes, all of those things lead to better writing.
Okay.
So now when you set that table for the how and the reading, that they understand that if I'm in the social sciences, how do these theories work? How am I supposed to look at these theories? What's missing? What are they talking about? What are all these nuts and bolts things that they're talking about? How do I write about that? How do I understand that? And once they get that foundation, now you come to the writing. And to me, The three most important words in higher education: application, synthesis, and analysis.
Okay. Right.
Is when you look at the application, is day one when you enter, let's say, in a bachelor's program, you've had all of these experiences, whether that be work, life. We want to take a scholar practitioner model, take your experiences and mix it with research, in understanding that, okay, it's okay to have an opinion, but it's when you go off into the workforce, it's not your opinion that's going to get you the job
Right.
or get you that presentation. It's your understanding of how to mix a perspective and research together to solve a problem. And when you mix the two, that puts you at the head of the line for the job. That gives you the skills and the foundations of what people look for now. Is that we've gone into a skill driven society of thinkers, problem solvers, analyzing. All of the things that we do here at Southern New Hampshire, you're going to be put at the forefront of the line for these employers to look at, because it's the skills that matter.
Right.
And when you mix the human experience with scholarly research, you're doing something that's not just transformational. In this day and time, with all the problems in the world, is that we need people in every profession that can mix the human experience with research to solve problems, to bring people together that have different understandings of people, readings, thoughts, because those are the folks who are going to make the communities better. And when they have the understanding of how to apply that human experience with research, and when you're looking at a scholarly article, textbook, you understand that I now understand what's missing in the research. How did they get to their conclusions? What steps did they take to get to writing about this? Or who did they interview, or who did they study? How did they get to have these thoughts? What's missing in their thoughts? Or are their thoughts in alignment with what the human experience says? Is when they kind of understand how to navigate the reading and scholarly research and textbooks, now the writing starts to improve. Now they know, instead of in high school, okay, I'm writing in generalities. Now I'm writing as a scholar. I'm writing as a thinker, because I know now how to mix the two. And in some of the courses of where, there's you talk about synthesis.
Hmm.
My first doctoral professor said this is, is when you're writing your lit review, it's not a charm bracelet of who said this, that. No. She said it's basically understand a collection of ideas and thoughts of you're presenting their best work, their best analysis to paint a picture for the reader that you understand how to navigate their point of view. And that is so critical when you write the literature review, research papers, is that synthesis. What, in a nutshell, can you say in 2 paragraphs about this human experience from a scholarly perspective? And every day you're reinforcing that you're getting away from your opinion, is you're thinking like a scholar. You're thinking like you're going to solve this problem. You're thinking like you're going to give this presentation. And every day, communicating those thoughts, communicating those actions in the course room, emphasizing progress. In that, when you write paper X, this is leading to bigger and better things that are not only in your coursework, but in your profession.
Okay. That's the selling point. Right.
Hmm.
Okay.
Because I was talking with a student Monday. They were taking a counseling class, and one of the things I told the student is that is now in this class you get to think like a practitioner, of where you're learning all of these processes and all of this research to now is when you go in your profession, you not only get to help the people you want to serve, you now get to talk to all of these different stakeholders about not just on what the research says, but the human experience in mixing the two. That's what people want to hear. That's what brings people together.
Mhm.
And that's what enhances your brand and your profession, is that every day you're becoming a critical thinker. Every day you're taking one step closer to becoming that person you want to be. And I think with all of my students, I always say, you're one step closer than what you were yesterday.
Right. Right.
And when you give them that, that's the push that's going to make them log on to their computer. That's the push that gets inside their head of, man, I can really do this. There's a YouTube video. Rita Pearson gives a TED talk, and one of the things she says, there cannot be significant learning without a significant relationship.
Right.
In
Right.
an online learning format, the relationship is with the how. The relationship is with everyday
Okay.
communicating the progress. What are the next steps? You did this good, that leads to X. Every day you go through these courses, you're going to get the skills that are going to transform you, transform the people you want to serve. But also, I think in online format, and in my master's program, my master's was in teaching and learning. They would have intro videos in every module of people who took the same major
Right.
but used it in different ways.
Okay.
And so that implanted in my mind, like, oh, someone was a professor, someone was an instructional designer, someone became a writer. So now that creates options in my mind that, okay, people are using these classes in different ways. And I think is, at Southern New Hampshire, is showing students the many different people who have taken these classes and use some of the tools in different ways of how they got better in their profession and why this was so impactful in their work is meaningful, because now they see people who went through the same experiences like them
Right.
and are using and applying what they've learned in their profession.
Yeah, I've done a series of those. I got to show you some of the links because the faculty we have are just absolutely rock stars. And so I do women who are successful in their criminal justice profession, and they do that modeling. And each one, put it up on my YouTube channel. They all field no less than 100 views because they're doing exactly that, Derek. They're saying, "This is I was where you were, and here's the steps that I took to overcome the impediments and the obstacles, et cetera." And then they reinforce what's really important. The teachers pulling their hair out is saying, "I'm trying to get them to write with some degree of articulation and eloquence and organization, and to be succinct and precise." And so they say, "You know what? If they can do it, I can do it." And they're very humbling. It's a great. I'll send you a couple of those and you should take a look at it. So how do you get? My question then is because the physical component of writing. The students have very varying schemas relative to their educational experiences and what they were held accountable to and for relative to writing before they hit the college circuit, right?
Hmm.
And many of our students write very conversationally because it worked for them. But now, making that transition from conversational writing to expository, scholarly writing, what do you recommend instructors do? I mean, what can they do, especially in a reasonably short term, about 8 weeks? And what do you recommend to help them
Um,
not be discouraged too?
I think, I'll look and I may still have some of the clips from like my master's program of where there was uh they would have what they call this anticipatory setup. We're gonna take this basic what you would write as a teacher, but we're gonna transform that sentence into what that looks like in a scholarly model.
Oh, I love to see that.
Um,
Okay, yes, that would be great.
I'm, I'll dig through my thumb driving books, but that's how we were shown how to. Okay, that's basic, but now here's a scholarly paragraph, or
Okay.
here's how to think scholarly. And going back to, and I don't know what courses sort of teach you that basic APA foundation of writing a scholarly paper,
Hmm.
of showing them this is how you take your opinion, but also let's look at it with research. Okay, you believe African Americans in this community had this experience with law enforcement, but let's take some article and say, yes, you believe this, but Jones and Williams 2016 said this. So how do you fit those two together? So if Jones and Williams 2016 said this, that makes in contrast to this experience, Jones and Williams, has said this. Is giving them that example of how you take an opinion or a thought
Hmm.
and connecting it to the textbook, an article, is having that connection and showing
Okay.
them that connection.
Right, right, right. So modeling the connection.
Hmm.
Well, as we're getting closer, we're hitting 10:20 right now. So I'm going to say this is part two. I would love a part three.
Absolutely.
All right, great. Because I'd love to be able to talk about grading, rubrics, grading, assessment, analysis for the next one. Is that all right with you, Doc?
Oh, that's absolutely. Can I just say one more
Yes,
thing
please do.
before we leave? Um, I guess why this became so important to me, not just in the 10 years I've been doing this. I went to in the in the 90s. It was the predominant high school in the Southeast, and by the time I graduated, I went off to a 2-year school, and the first time I had to write a term paper,
Mm,
it was dreadful.
right.
And I remember getting called into my instructor's office, and she let me have it. And she asked me, and she said, somewhere in your high school experience, I know you had to have written a term paper. And I told her, no, I didn't.
Right. Right.
And she about fell to the floor like, you got to be kidding me.
Right.
I explained to her what my high school learning was like. And that's where not just the meeting of the minds, but she gave me the how this was supposed to.
Okay. Okay.
And so
Right.
my quest has always become, as an educator, the how is making sure every student understands the how this works. Because when you look at diversity, equity, inclusion, marginalized learners,
Right.
it all begins with Was there an explanation and a pathway to understanding how a system works, how you learn, how you develop relationships with the textbook, how you develop relationships with writing and opinions, how college learning works?
Hmm.
That's what drives me to get this degree. What I talk to my students about as an academic advisor, everything is based in the foundation of the how.
Well, we're going to pick up on that in part 3. As soon as this is downloaded and thrown at the YouTube channel, I'll be sending it out to all the faculty as another professional development experience. Derrick, I am blinded by your halo, my friend. Absolutely
Thank you.
fascinating. And I did capture what you said. I wrote some things down. Application, synthesis, and analysis. And I love this quote. I'm going to use it with my students. You're one step ahead of where you were yesterday. I love that. That is great. It's inspirational. One sentence is absolutely inspirational. So, Derrick, stay tuned for part 3. I'll ring you up and send out an invite when you're free. We'll try to lock it in for next week. And Derrick, thanks for taking the time to do this today. It's just
Al
absolutely exceptional. Thank you.
Always, Dr. C, you're the rock star.
Yeah, I rock around a little bit because I'm old. That's about it.
Thank you.
All right, my friend. Have a
Thank
great day.
you too. Bye.